Good evening, everyone. Wherever you are listening from, welcome to a new episode of our podcast, Not the Perfect Crime. Before we begin, a very important warning. Today's episode is for adults only. If you have children with you, please do not listen to this episode while they're around. Tonight, we're going to Egypt. The year is 2012. The setting, a small village in the countryside, in the district of Al-Fashion, in the governorate of Beni Suef, south of Cairo. It's one of those places where everyone knows everyone, where every sale, every argument, every new car in the village quickly becomes public knowledge. And in the middle of this quiet, dusty place, we meet a man named Imam. Imam is 37 years old. He doesn't have a stable job. Sometimes he works in construction. Sometimes he rents out his small concrete mixer, his tools, his wheel. When things go a little better, he acts as a kind of small contractor to make a bit more money. At one point, when luck turns his way, he manages to buy a pickup truck. With it, he starts transporting vegetables, fruit, whatever he can, trying to build a life. On paper, he is a man who hustles. In reality, he is a man who lives mostly off other people, and especially off one person, his third wife, Nadia. Imam has married several times. By the time our story begins, he has had 3 wives, one of whom he has already divorced, and he has 6 children in total. Nadia is his third wife, and the one who, in his mind, won the lottery in life when he marries her. Nadia already has a life of her own. She is a widow. Her first husband died in 2008, leaving her with 4 children. Some of them are already adults, married and living in other cities. One of them, a little girl, about 8 years old, lives with her. Her late husband also left her a solid inheritance, money, and a building with 2 large apartments and 2 ground-floor shops. Nadia lives in one flat, rents or uses one of the shops, and leaves the other one empty. She works as a seamstress, sewing clothes for women in the village. She isn't greedy. She isn't trying to get rich. She has enough, and that is enough for her. But in a small village, a woman with property and some savings is always noticed. Everyone knows she has real estate, and that she once sold a house for £38,000. Back in 2012, that was a lot of money, the equivalent of a small fortune for most people there. And one of the people who notices that is Imam. Imam rents Nadia's empty shop to store his construction equipment. They see each other every day. He tells her about his life, about his work, about how hard things are. He presents himself as a man who struggles, as a victim of circumstances. Nadia feels sorry for him at first. Then she grows attached. Soon, what started as a landlord-tenant relationship turns into affection, then romance, then talk of marriage. Her children aren't thrilled. She is older than Imam by several years. She already has her own wealth, and they fear he might be interested in that, more than in her. But they don't manage to stop the marriage. In 2009, Nadia and Imam marry. From that moment on, things change quickly. Once he is in the house, Imam slowly begins to close doors around Nadia. First, he tells her to shut down her sewing shop. He doesn't like the idea of her working. He doesn't want men seeing her, even from a distance. He insists she stays home. He frames it as honor, as protecting her. Then, he starts controlling her children. He doesn't want them visiting freely. He makes it hard for her older children to see their mother in her own home. Sometimes, if they come to the door, he makes them talk to her in the street, under his eyes. And if Nadia protests, there are arguments. If she protests too loudly, there is violence. Neighbors hear shouting. They hear insults. They hear Nadia calling him no man, saying her first husband was worth 10 of him. Imam responds the only way he knows how, with his fists. In public, he tells people he married her out of compassion, that he wanted to help a lonely widow, that he isn't interested in her money. In private, he slowly eats into her savings. At some point, Imam convinces Nadia to buy a pickup truck so he can work properly and bring in more income. The truck is bought. Witnesses say Nadia paid most, and Imam very little. But when it comes time to handle the paperwork, he quietly registers the vehicle in his own name. Then he brings her a handwritten paper, a fake ownership document, and tells her, "Here, the truck is in your name too." Nadia can't read very well, and she doesn't trust him. So she takes the paper to someone she trusts. He takes one look and tells her the truth. The paper is worthless. The truck is not in her name. Nadia explodes. In the traffic office, in front of clerks, officers, and random people, she confronts Imam. She accuses him of lying, of tricking her, of using her money. She shouts that he is not a real man, that he is a fraud, that he's nothing compared to her first husband. The entire scene humiliates him deeply. From that moment on, their relationship crosses a line. The fights become constant, the insults heavier, the beatings worse. And in a village, where everyone knows everything, people begin to comment, to laugh behind his back, to joke that Nadia wears the pants. Imam feels cornered. And worst of all, he realizes something. If Nadia decides to divorce him, he loses the house, the comfort, the money, the truck, the status. He would be a middle-aged man, with debts, no stable job, and nowhere to go. And in his mind, there is only one solution. Not divorce. Not starting over. Not working harder. No, for Imam, the only way out is murder. He begins to plan. He needs a story. Something big. Something that explains Nadia's disappearance and his own strange behavior. So, he invents a kidnapping. According to the story, he will later tell the police he and Nadia are ambushed on a dark road by masked men, armed with sticks and knives. They are dragged out of their truck, forced into another vehicle, taken into the desert, held for 4 days, beaten, tortured, and finally released, only after revealing where Nadia keeps her money at home. The kidnappers, he says, stole £38,000 from the house sale, plus another £180,000. Money no one knew about, except Nadia. It's a dramatic story. But before he can tell it, he needs to do one thing. He needs Nadia out of the way. One Thursday night, in November 2012, Imam puts his plan into action. He buys sleeping pills, crushes them, and mixes them into Nadia's dinner. She eats, complains that she feels unusually tired, and eventually collapses into deep sleep. Imam waits. He watches her, lying helpless, unconscious, in the home she owns, the home he never wants to leave. Around midnight, he picks up a heavy tool, something like a hammer. He walks over to her and strikes her on the head. Once, then again. Nadia never has a chance to scream. She dies in her own house, killed by the man she took in, trusted, married. What happens next is cold and methodical. To make her disappear, Imam cuts her body into pieces, places the parts into sacks, and cleans the house as best he can, washing, scrubbing, cutting out blood-stained pieces of carpet, throwing what he can into distant drains. He loads the sacks into the pickup truck, drives to a remote area near Minya, and dumps them there, hoping animals, heat, and time will erase his crime. Then he drives to a canal, the Ibrahimia Canal, and pushes the truck in, trying to stage it as stolen or abandoned. A guard sees him, runs towards him, but Imam escapes. The next day, he hides. And then, a few days later, he walks into a police station, with his story already prepared. He tells officers that he and Nadia were kidnapped by unknown men, beaten for days, robbed of their money, then released, with a warning, never to speak. He claims he is poor, that he had saved up his £180,000 by selling his construction equipment, his mixer, his tools, his truck. He suggests strongly that Nadia and her siblings might themselves be behind the kidnapping, trying to get rid of him and his share of the money. But very quickly, his story starts falling apart. First problem, Nadia is missing. If she was freed, like he claims, where is she? Why didn't she come to the police? Why didn't she go to her children, to her family? The police ask Imam if you were both kidnapped together. Why did you come report it alone? Why didn't you bring her here? He says she was tired, in shock, needed to rest. Officers tell him, fine. Go get her. We'll talk to her gently. He goes out, returns later, and says, I didn't find her. She's not at home. She's nowhere. At that moment, the investigators' suspicion deepens. They search the village, ask neighbors, check every house, every shop. No one has seen Nadia since that famous Thursday. Second problem, the £180,000. Imam has no documents, no contracts, no witnesses to prove the sale of any equipment, no proof that such a sum even existed. His financial situation, according to people in the village, was actually very bad. Debts, no steady work, no sign at all of a man who owned that kind of money. Third problem, the timeline. Imam says the kidnapping happened on Friday evening, but people in the village remember seeing his truck for the last time on Thursday. No one saw him, no one saw Nadia leave the village on Friday to go see a client, as he claims. In a place that small, if you drive out, people see you. And no one did. And then comes the testimony of a little girl. Nadia's 8-year-old daughter, from her first marriage, tells the police that every Friday she goes to spend the day with her mother. On that particular Friday, she went as usual. But her mother wasn't there. She asked Imam, where is my mother? He told her. He woke up and simply didn't find her. He claimed he didn't know where she had gone. For investigators, this is crucial. A child doesn't usually invent this kind of detail. The suspicion around Imam becomes almost certainty. But they still need evidence. That evidence comes from two directions. First, from the guard, who saw a man pushing a truck into the canal. He remembers the incident. The police recover the vehicle. Inside, they find blood traces. Lab results show it is Nadia's blood. Second, from the house itself. Despite all of Imam's cleaning, forensic teams still find tiny traces of blood in the home. On surfaces, on cut carpets, in places he missed. Again, the blood matches Nadia. At this point, the kidnapping story is dead. The unknown gang disappears into thin air. The only person who was with Nadia the night she vanished. The only person who had a clear interest in her death. The only person caught dumping a truck filled with her blood is Imam. He is arrested and confronted with the evidence. Under pressure, Imam finally admits to killing Nadia, but he tries to justify himself. He claims he acted in a moment of rage. After she humiliated him, after she betrayed him, he tries to frame it as a crime of honor, as if he were defending his dignity. But the court does not see honor. It sees premeditation, the sleeping pills, the calculated timing, the way he used the night, the tools he prepared, the way he disposed of the body, the carefully built fake kidnapping story. It sees a man who closed every exit until the only way out, in his mind, was murder. In the end, Imam is convicted of premeditated murder. His case is sent to the Mufti, as is customary in Egypt. For death sentences, he is sentenced to death, and the sentence is carried out. Years later, in the village, people still remember Nadia as the widow who had enough to live, who wanted a bit of companionship, and who opened her door to the wrong man. That was today's case, the story of Imam and Nadia, a man who preferred to destroy a life rather than lose his comfort, and a woman who paid with everything she had. Thank you for listening to this episode of our podcast. If you'd like more stories like this, don't forget to follow and share it with someone who loves true crime as much as you do. Until next time, stay safe and trust your instincts.